All right, guys, so this is going to be a full breakdown of how I implement Dehancer into my personal workflow. So I'm actually going to go ahead and hop in DaVinci Resolve. If you do want a full review and a full walkthrough of Dehancer and all of its tools, go ahead and check out my other video. I'll leave it up there if you want to see a more detailed look on what Dehancer is like. But we're going to go ahead and hop in and walk you through how I would use Dehancer on my personal projects. So I already have a clip loaded up here. We're actually going to go ahead and let's go ahead and reset that. Okay, so we're going to start clean here. First thing, I actually like to hop over to our Dehancer node. Actually, a note that I want to make, most of my clips are grouped because if I'm working with multiple cameras, I want to make sure they're all under one group so that when I'm converting them through a color space transform, they're being converted through its respective camera profiles. And so I normally grade in just regular REC709 footage, non-log, and so I'm going to have that as my input right here. Gamma 2.4, this is your DaVinci wide gamut, DaVinci intermediate color space. We're gonna go ahead and hop over to post clip. By the way to do that is you're gonna go ahead and right click your clip, all right, and make sure you're in the clip tab. And then you're gonna go ahead and add into a new group, and then you're gonna go ahead and label what that group will be named. And so when you do that, you'll have two extra tabs open up, the group pre-clip and the group post-clip. So you're gonna go ahead and do your conversion. So we just did our first one. We're gonna go ahead and do our ending, your output conversion. So we went out on our previous one. So we're gonna go in for your DaVinci wide gamut, in for DaVinci intermediate. Your output will be REC709 and output gamma 2.4. And so what that does is that it helps you grade at a local level here with more dynamic range, because the color space of DaVinci wide gamut is a lot bigger, so you're working with a lot more room. Disclaimer, I'm not a colorist. This is all stuff that I'm learning through YouTube. So if you would like to learn from an actual colorist, I suggest you check out Cullen Kelly. I'll go ahead and link his YouTube channel. He has a lot of fantastic material regarding color grading. So we're gonna go ahead and hop into our Dehancer node. Throw that on there, boom. So as you can see, it already kind of has a preset of like a film profile. So since we're already in REC709, we're gonna leave the source as is. Personally, I like to keep all of this untouched. I haven't had any issues with diffringing and halations and blooming, so I haven't used that slider myself. But exposure, temperature, tint, I like to do all my adjustments for that at the local level right here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and close input. We're gonna go ahead and start out with the film profile. So we're gonna hop in and look at which ones we like. There's a ton of options, but for this specific one, I'm probably gonna land on Kodak Ektachrome E100. I just like how it just works with the current colors of the image. So if I turn that off, it's not doing crazy much. Maybe it's enhancing the mid-tone exposure a little bit, but it's not really shifting the colors that much. But let's see, for the sake of the example, let's do something crazy. So we're gonna go sure, 200T. So everything's a lot more purple. So we'll stick with that. All right, let's just say that's the look we want to go for. So from here on out, I usually leave the push and pull. This is a creative adjustment. If if you want to change the saturation and contrast of the image. I like to leave that as is. So we're going to close our film tab. Next, we're going to go ahead and jump over to our print tab. So this is your print stock that you're going to choose. You got a couple. Cineon film 3513. That looks pretty interesting. 2383 print. And we got your glossy paper. For this one, I kind of like 2383. That's looking nice. It does give it a little bit more contrast, as you can see. So with the print, boom, pretty good. And from here on, I do like to bump up the color density from here. So I'll like pop that up just a little bit and land it where the skin tones are looking pretty nice. I think right here is pretty good. I could go ahead and do some adjustments here, but I think I'm gonna leave it. Again, I like to do more of my exposure and exposure adjustments in my clip tab. So we're gonna just see where I like all of this. Maybe the tonal contrast I might increase a little bit. Let's see, kind of like it there. So we'll leave that, boom. And then depending on the project, we can go ahead now and add more of the creative features. So film grain, I do like some film grain. I don't want too much of this, but just enough so that it gives it that grain structure. So 35 is pretty subtle if I bump it up. So we're gonna leave it kind of where it was, maybe around 30. Yeah, I think that's where it was anyways. So it was at 35. Okay, we're gonna go with the 30. All right, so film grain, it's good. We're gonna go ahead and jump to film compression. So this is where you can have softer highlight roll-offs. So I definitely like to use this. As you can see, the highlights are softening on her face. See the shirt? Yeah, so it's not as harsh when you get to the highlights. And then so you got your impact. This is how much it's affecting the image. We'll leave it at about 70. Okay, this is doing not a lot in this image because there's not a lot of highlights happening. But we like to just keep that in. All right. From here on, I might maybe throw on a halation for this specific project. I think it would be pretty cool. Give it some glow, some glowiness on the face. So you can't really see it with right here. So we might want to use the no remjet option. You can see that's a lot. I don't want to have too much. I just want to give it a subtle pop. Okay. So it is making the skin tones much more red, which is, I don't want too much of that. I think right there looks good. So again, we're gonna go to bloom. So this just adds that glowy effect, as you can see. Again, I don't want to have too much of this, so maybe we're gonna go to 31. All right, so we're there. And then last thing I might do is do a vignette. So I normally like to just enable it, throw the mask on so you can see what the vignette is doing. And this is more of like a basic vignette for the whole entire image. And then we don't want it too small. Again, it's kind of just more of a general one. And then I'm gonna just lower it just a tad. Okay, so at this point, I am pretty happy with how it looks creatively. And so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and jump over to, actually first let's see what Dehancer is doing to this image. Okay. So it's doing a lot already, right? And so we want to try to preserve what this is doing. So if there's any minor adjustments that we want to do, again, a lot of the stuff we're doing in the clip are going to be small changes. We're not really pushing the image as much because the idea is we want to get the look that we want at the end of the sequence and then just do some minor corrections, okay? So this is your primary. We're gonna start with your primaries. Again, just shout out to Cullen Kelly for this node tree. I love how simple it is. I will go ahead and link the video of him explaining of how to use this node tree structure. It's very good. So we're gonna start off in your primary adjustment. So we're gonna do an overall correction of exposure in your HDR wheels. So I might want to bump that up just a little bit here. That's looking pretty good. Then I'm going to go ahead and do some adjustments in the primaries. Bump up the highlights. Maybe take down the lift. So we're here. I kind of like, I like where we're at here. So again, it's very, very small adjustments. It does just add a little bit of contrast. So we're gonna go to balance. This is where we wanna do, you might wanna shift the colors a little bit. So I think it's pretty good with where we're at right now, but let's just see what we can do with the image. So if we want to make it a bit warmer, I guess we could push it up, use an offset wheel. Okay, I mean that's pretty cool too, but I think I'm gonna try to keep it pretty neutral. All right, usually when I'm moving the balance, this is where I am focused on the skin tones and looking at what that's doing. What you could also do is look at your window. You can look at your vector scope. Okay, that will tell you where your skin tones are. So if you open up your qualifier, you can see that a little circle pops up at the scopes. So let's go ahead and do, so you can see where the skin tone lands. I'm gonna try to push it up a little bit warmer. Okay. Now that feels very warm, very dramatic. I'm gonna reset that. I'm just gonna do just a tiny bit. Cool. So it's making it just a little bit warmer, which I like. All right. Now we're gonna hop into our saturation. This is in a HSV color space with the channels turned off, channels 1 and 3 turned off. And what that is doing is you are manipulating just the saturation channel, giving it more color density. Now we bumped up the color density already, so we might not even need to use this. But in the case that we do, what we could do is bump up the gamma just a bit. That's giving a lot. And we could pull down the gain, try to balance that out a little bit. So what that is doing is, again, it's giving it a lot more pop in the colors. I mean, that looks okay. I think we'll leave it at that. Next, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create a mask. For this specific image, I want to have a mask on the main performer. So we're going to do a very, very subtle mask. Go ahead and pop that in. Okay, do a lot of feathering because we don't want it to look too harsh. We're going to go and invert that and then drop that just a little bit, because what that's doing is it's affecting the exposure outside of the mask. And so what, just turn that off, and what that's doing is making her pop just a little bit. Okay, might be too much. All right, and what we want to do here, since it's a moving image, we want to go ahead and track that so that stays on our performer. Okay, if I do want to make any other masks to adjust any sort of exposure, we're going to go ahead and do that in this parallel node column. So we're going to usually start with a top one and work our way down. From here, this is where we want to do our secondary adjustments and correction. This is where we want to do our color adjustments. Let's say we want to take a little bit more of the blue in the back out, okay? Or magenta, let's just do that. So we're gonna go hop over to your curves. There's many ways to do this, but this is the way that I would attack this. And we're gonna go to hue versus sat. Let's say I wanna make it a little less saturated in the back. Just pull that down just a little bit. So you can see, it's not doing a lot. We don't have a lot going on. It's pretty dark here anyways, and so you can do that. Or if we're feeling like there's a little bit too much red on the skin tones and we want to shift that a little bit, we can go to your hue versus hue, shift it that way. All right. So I think it's okay where it's at. So we're just gonna leave it as is. All right. And so these last two nodes are kind of where you're doing, well, this one, second to the last, is where you wanna do any sort of texture related grades. Cullen was saying that this is where you want to do any sort of spatial stuff, so maybe some noise reduction or some, let's see, some grain or halation that you want to add on. This is where you would want to do that. Since we have Dehancer already doing all that, we're just going to go ahead and leave this blank just for this project. I don't think I need any noise reduction, so if you do, this is where you would want to throw that in. Now trim, this is, I've never used this yet, but again, Cullen Kelly was saying that if you ever needed like a last minute adjustment to the clip and you're basically at the end of your project timeline and you need to make some changes, this is where you would want to make those changes. He said to refrain from using that and try your best not to use this, but it's just the backup. All right, so that's basically the workflow of how I would color grade a footage or a clip in DaVinci Resolve using Dehancer. So we're gonna do a before and after. So this is before. All right, this is what it looked like coming in. This is after. Boom, beautiful. This is with Dehancer, without Dehancer. Okay. All right, guys, so this is the end. If you liked the video, go ahead and like and subscribe and write down in the comments things you liked, things you didn't like. So I'll see you in the next one. Laters.